الحمد لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صل اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. Dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, all praise and glory and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِّعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Anything that is working in your life is blessing and favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that should make you more thankful and more grateful to Him. And all our needs are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to intensify our efforts in praying and making supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua is very important ibadah. It's actually the essence of ibadah because through the dua you show Allah your need for Him and you recognize that He is the one who makes everything happens. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, we all want to be happy and succeed in this life and in the hereafter. But that requires that we understand this life and we understand our deen so that we know what is it expected from us, what is the job that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned to us. Know it and fulfill it. Know it, understand it, and fulfill it to the best of our abilities. One of the characteristics of this life is a test ground, that as long as you're living, you're going to be tested. And that should not come as a surprise, because Quran tells us, لَتُبْلَوُنَّ وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ هو الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. So this life is about tests. So that will eliminate the element of surprise. That because a lot of people fail in tests because they were not prepared. They are caught off guard. So we should be always ready that from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, you're going to be tested. Tested by decision to make, choices to make, sometimes difficulty, sometimes something good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you all the time. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you? To make you a better person. Allah does not give us hard time, does not want to give us hard time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be better people. And one way we can be better people is through these tests, by learning our lessons, through these wake-up calls. That's what you become a better person through the knowledge that you learn, but also through the tests of this life. So it's part of our tazkiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be better people, and the way to do that is by what we learn and apply in our life, but also through the tests that we go through, and you emerge from them stronger. Why? Because you learn some lessons, you fix some mistakes, etc. So that will make you a better person. Also in this life, a lot of time we go through transitions. Transition from one phase to another. People, they start young child and then teenager and then young adults and then etc. So life comes in phases, and between those phases there is transition. People transition from high school to college, from college to work, and then from work to retirement, and then being single to be married, and then being parents. All of these are transitions from one phase to another. Unfortunately, a lot of people fail in those transitions. A lot of failures, actually, they happen in those transitions. One typical example is the way parents deal with their children when they grow up. They grow up, they become teenagers, they go through that transition. Parents are not aware of it, they're still treating them as kids, and all the problems happen between parents and children. Why? Because people were not prepared for that. Parents sometimes are not prepared to have children, spouses, so they fail in that transition. So it is very important to be aware of these transitions and to prepare for them so that we don't fail. There are many examples, even communities and nations. A lot of nations, when they gain independence in the transition, they failed miserably to build a solid state and economy, etc., even though they were fully mobilized and united against occupation until they liberated their country. Again, failure in transition. Muslim community here did excellent job in building their Islamic centers and institutions, etc., but also were not prepared for the transition, for the aftermath, and things became stagnant. Why I'm saying this? Because we just went through a very important transition that we go through every year, which is after Ramadan. Big transition, majority of Muslims fail in that transition miserably because they are not aware of it or because they are not prepared. After Ramadan, we lose the momentum. We lose what they call the tailwind, the wind that pushes the airplane from behind. That's what we had in Ramadan. We had a lot of momentum and we had that tailwind, but that stops after Ramadan. And as I said, a lot of people, they are not prepared for this and they are not aware, and they fail in that transition. What is left after Ramadan? What do we have? One, we have a lot of gains that we made in Ramadan that we should be very stingy with those gains. We should not lose them quickly. We should really protect, defend, and try to maintain the new level that you have reached, the new level in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the new level in your worship, the new level in your relationship with the Quran. We should try to maintain that as much as possible for as long as possible. What are we left with after Ramadan? We're left with two major items or tools in our hands that if we really do them well and take care of them, then we can achieve that goal and succeed in the transition, which is to maintain and preserve the gains that we made in Ramadan, as much as possible of those gains for as long as possible. And these are Salah and Quran. You can tell me that's all you're saying, just Salah, yes, Salah and Quran. These are the most important things in the hands of a believer. If you are careful, if you care about your Iman, this is what you need to maintain your Iman. Salah and Quran. Salah and Quran, both of them, they strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And subhanAllah, one of the scholars mentioned that he said that if you want to speak to Allah, pray. If you want Allah to speak to you, read the Quran. So in both, that's what is common between Salah and Quran. Both of them, they work on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unfortunately, again, majority of people, they're not taking full advantage of these two tools, the Salah and the Quran. Salah, many Muslims pray. But the question is, what kind of prayer? Is it the prayer that produces results? Or it is the prayer that is obsolete, that is a routine task that we do to get it out of the way? So what we need, all of us, is to take good care of your prayer. Take good care of your prayer so that you can get the benefits out of it. Try to perfect your prayer. Try to perfect your prayer. Work on the quality. Yes, you're praying, and that's great. We should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. But you need to work on the quality. Not just praying, not just performing prayer, but perfecting your prayer. Try to make every prayer better than the one before. Try to increase your concentration during prayer. So it is, again, work on the quality so that you can get the spiritual recharging. Because prayer is meant to recharge your spiritual batteries, your soul, your iman, to refresh it, to strengthen it. It's like, when you exercise, you become physically fresh. When you pray, you should become spiritually fresh. If that's not the case, then there is a problem in the quality of our prayers. Prayer, salah, comes from the word sila. Sila is a relationship. So, if you want to know how good your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, check how good is your prayer. Or tell me how good is your prayer, I can tell you how good is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is probably no better indication of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the quality of our prayers and our relationship with the Quran. The quality of our prayers and the relationship with the Quran will give you exactly how good is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One thing that we need to remember, that salah is not a routine task. It's not a habit. Should never become a habit. Should always remain a worship act. And should always be in your mind the most important activity of the day. If you want to list what are the most important meetings you have in the day, appointments and meetings, salah should come first. Why? Because it's an appointment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, who is more important here? Who is more important than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to meet? You're meeting your boss, you're meeting somebody very important in your life, Allah is much more important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if your boss can hire you or fire you or promote you, in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everything. Everything you need, all your destiny is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the most important activities and appointments of the day. And they should be taken like that. When we have an important appointment, how do we prepare for it? When you have an interview for a job, when you're meeting your boss, how well we prepare for that, and how focused we are and concentrated. At وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, we should even be more. We should even do more when we prepare for our prayer. Concentration. You should try to be aware of everything you say when you're praying. From the moment you say Allahu Akbar to the moment you say Assalamu alaikum. You should be aware, your heart is present. There is a connection between your brain. Your brain is here. It's not somewhere else. Your brain is here. Why? Because you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you afford to be distracted when you are standing before someone is important? You cannot be distracted when you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brain is there, heart is there, and the tongue. All of them are connected. When you say Subhanallah al-Azim or Subhana Rabbika al-A'la, you should be aware of what you're saying. Yes, you say it every day and you say it many times, but still, you have to make an effort to be aware. Fatiha, you know it very well, you can recite it without even paying attention, but that's not the point. The point is your brain, your mind should be present. So one goal should be for all of us is to try to be aware of everything we say during prayer from start to finish. And that requires you every now and then to refresh your memory about the meaning and the tafsir and the interpretation of Surah Al-Fatiha, and also to be aware of the meaning of the surah that you recite usually. Go and check, so when you read those surahs, you're just not reading. I know that we know Fatiha very well, we know some short surah very well, to the point that we can recite them without paying attention. I know we can do tashahhud without even paying attention. I know we can do tasbih in ruku' and sujood without even paying attention. But that's not the point. The point is that you only get from your prayer the part in which you concentrate. The rest is physical activity. The rest is you're just doing some body movements. But the real prayer is khushu', concentration. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises those who concentrate during prayer. And always make your target the prayer of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You need to bring your prayer up to get it closer and closer to the prayer of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And always try to make prayer Mi'raj moment. You know Mi'raj, it's like the trip that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made to the seventh heaven. Like for those few minutes you come out of this life. You really forget about everything. No planning, no anything. You forget about this life and you live those few minutes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely. You are almost out of this life and then you come back. So that's why they call it Salah, Mi'raj, and Mu'min. So concentration, Salah is about concentration. No concentration, no Salah. You're doing something else. And that requires also that you take time praying. And every now and then I can still see people who pray too fast to concentrate. There is no way you can concentrate if you make ruku'ah like this. There is no point. You make ruku'ah, you say the tasbih 3 times slowly until you finish, and then you come out of ruku'ah. Not you are racing, running. Sujood is the same thing. And that's how Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described. He saw someone in the mosque praying and comes to Rasul. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will tell him, go back and pray. You did not pray. So the man will do the same thing, but very fast. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will send him back and say, you did not pray. Go back and pray. So what the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, that praying so fast means that you're not concentrating. So you get nothing out of it. That's the meaning that you did not pray. Go back and pray, you did not pray. And the man said, that's all what I know. And then Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam explained to him that in every move, you have to do it until you come to a standstill. Your body comes to a standstill in ruku'ah. And then you come out of ruku'ah, stand still, and then sujood. And I always say the difference between good prayer and very lousy prayer, couple of minutes. Very bad prayer will take 2 minutes, very good prayer will take 4 minutes. So that's the difference. Who is too busy and what are you busy? You're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, any smart and wise person want to prolong the time with Allah, staying even more with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just because we have other commitments, that's why we need to finish prayer. But if we really, our iman reaches the level that's the high level, then we should really reach a point where, like Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was enjoying prayer. So he moved prayer from a duty to become a pleasure. It's not actually pleasure. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said it's his utmost pleasure. وَجُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ. So the utmost pleasure of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the time when he's praying. That's why he doesn't want it to finish. That's his utmost pleasure. So that's for prayer. Please make sure that, especially after Ramadan, after losing that momentum and that tailwind that we had in Ramadan, prayer becomes even more important now, not less important. Second thing is the Quran. And as I mentioned before, there are different categories of Muslims when it comes to dealing with the Quran. There are a large number of Muslims, large segment of Muslims who are abandoning the Quran. They have almost no relationship. These are the people who remember the Quran when somebody passes away. So, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. So, make sure that you are not among these people. So let's focus on people who have some relationship with the Quran. And let's try to work and fix that relationship and make it stronger. The reason people are not getting the benefit from the Quran are very similar to the reason people are not getting the benefit from prayer. And we pray, we're not getting the benefit from it. We read the Quran, but we're not getting the benefit from it. And that has to be fixed. One reason why many Muslims don't have a strong relationship with the Quran, and by strong relationship I mean regular sessions, daily session. One, a lot of Muslims, they think that Quran is only for scholars. So we made the same mistake that other communities before us made. We created clergy in Islam. There is no clergy in Islam. Islam is a relationship, direct relationship between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We made the Quran easy for everybody to understand and to contemplate and reflect. So please resist that idea that Quran is not for me, I will never understand it. And that's because of this idea, many people end up doing what? When they read Quran, they read it without understanding, without reflecting. Why? They read it just for barakah. They read it for ajr. How many pages and how fast they finish Quran. Why? Because they are under the impression that they cannot understand it. While the truth of the matter is, we don't understand it because we are not making the effort. Not because Quran is too complicated. Because we are not making the effort. Many of us understood books and science field that are very complicated. In medicine, in engineering, in business, in management, etc. Things that are very thick textbooks. And we were able to study them and understand them and master them, and we were tested in them. Why? Because we made the effort. So that's not true, and try to resist that idea. The other thing that many Muslims, unfortunately, the other idea that has to be fixed, a lot of Muslims, they think that they already know their religion. So there isn't much they need to get from the Quran. And that's absolutely wrong. Nobody will reach a level, a point in their life where they don't need to better understand Islam. Nobody. So also try to resist this idea. That's not true. What you know is you know some basics of how to pray and how to pray, but that's not Islam. Islam much bigger than that. So there is a lot to learn from the Quran. You can learn it, you can understand it, and also there is so much guidance you need. And that's the key. That reading the Quran for guidance, not reading for ajr. And how many letters, how many page, how many surah? No. How much I got from it. Because Quran, there is a text and there is a message that you need to extract. There is a text that you read and there is a message that you need to extract to implement in your life. So that's for these reasons, people are either abandoning Quran or they read it but they don't get much out of it. Why? Because of these two misconceptions, these two wrong ideas that you have to resist. It's not true that Quran is only for scholars, and each one of us need to learn. There is so much to learn from the Quran. So we need to fix all these misconceptions so that we can get all the benefits from the Quran. Another factor, another reason, another way that you can benefit from the Quran is to understand the styles of the Quran. Why are we reading Quran? We're reading the Quran for guidance. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Guidance. You are someone who is pursuing Ridwanullah, the good pleasure of Allah, and you go to the Quran to get the directions. So there is a target in your mind. You want Allah to be pleased with you. You want to end up in heaven. How do I do that? I go to the Quran to get the direction. To get the direction, يَهْدِي بِهِ اللَّهُ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ رِضْوَانَهُ. Allah guides with the Quran those who are pursuing His good pleasure. So you need to be aware of the purpose of the Quran and the styles of the Quran. The purpose of the Quran, the style of the Quran. The purpose of the Quran is very simple. Quran want to make you the ideal believer. Want to shape you up spiritually. Quran shape you up. So we'll tell you about things that are good that you may be doing or you may not be doing. So that you need to work on them. And we'll tell you about things that are bad that they may apply to you so you can get rid of them, or they may not apply to you so you stay away from them. That's how Quran shape you up and keep you in good shape spiritually. Because when you read the Quran and read with understanding and reflection, you can check yourself against it. When you see yourself in the mirror, that's physically. You want to check yourself spiritually, Quran. Quran is a good session, for you it's like an X-ray or an MRI. Spiritually, will tell you about some deficiencies, some weaknesses, some areas that you need to work on, some areas that are good but need to be maintained or strengthened. So you have to understand that's the purpose of the Quran. It's Allah is giving you direction to His Ridwan, and giving you direction to heaven, giving you direction to happiness and success in this life and in the hereafter. So you are eager, you're reading the Quran, looking for those directions. The other thing that you need to be aware of is the styles of the Quran. Talk about them today, inshallah, briefly, some in summary, and we'll come back to talk about in details, hopefully, so that each one of us, when you are aware of the styles of the Quran, you can extract much more from it. You can benefit. It's like when you read to an author. If you read the first book to somebody, to an author for the first time, you are not aware of the style of the author, you may not get a lot of it. But if you read 2, 3, 4 books of that for that author, and you know the style, then you can get much more from their books. So the same thing, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, Quran, when you are aware of the styles of the Quran. Now you know the purpose. When you are aware of the styles of the Quran, you can get much more benefit from it. وَتُوبِ إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, Quran can be divided into two major categories of styles: direct and indirect. So the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is communicating to you sometimes comes direct, do and don't do. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبْرَ أَحَدُهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا. It's very clear. It's a direct style. That's the easiest. That's the easiest, and a lot of people will not miss that because it's very clear. Allah is telling you, do, don't do. Do this, don't do that. But that's the small part of the Quran. The larger part of the Quran is indirect styles. And these you need to be aware of them. You need to be aware of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the message, but indirectly. One way is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring scenes from the hereafter. Mashahid al-Qiyam. A lot of it in Quran. You need to pay attention. When Quran is talking about the people in heaven, you need to focus on what? Focus on what they were doing. That's the message. Rather than Allah telling you, do this, He will tell you that there are people who have done this, they ended up in heaven. Rather than Allah telling you, don't do this, no, Quran will tell you there are people who ended up in hellfire because that's what they were doing. So what's the message? The message for you is to avoid this. And that's a big part of the Quran is Mashahid al-Qiyamah, talking about the people, scenes from the Day of Judgment, of heaven and hell, both. What do you need when you come across a scene like this? Focus on what these people were doing, because that's the message. The message for you, what these people were doing, you need to do them, like the people of heaven. What people in hellfire are doing, that's what you need to avoid. So keep that in mind. Another indirect style. Allah will talk about people with whom He's pleased, or Allah praises some people, and then tell you what they were doing. Example, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, successful are the believers. If you're reading the Quran the right way, you immediately should ask yourself, why? Why Allah is saying these people are successful? What they were doing so that they can be like them. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. You stop. Those who concentrate during their prayers. How good is my prayer? I need to work on it. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Those who shun any vain talk. They avoid any lagw, anything that is useless talk, etc. So you are told what are the characteristics of these people with whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praised. إن الإنسان خلق هلوعا إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا إلا المصلين الذين هم على صلاتهم, etc. And then you have the series of characteristics. Luqman giving advice to his son, that the message is for you. The message is for you as you read in the Quran. Everything that Luqman has told his son is a message from Allah to you, but it came in indirect way. Tells you that Luqman is Hakim, Allah is pleased with him, and this father who is wise is giving an advice to his son. Take that advice. So rather than Allah telling you directly, He brings the same message in the form of a wise father giving advice to his son. So everything that Luqman has told his son, that's a message for you. Another part of the Quran is about the stories of people before us. Bani Israel, especially, but also other, Ad, Tamud, etc. That's lessons. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. When you come across those stories, you need to try to draw the lessons. What lessons they can, because Quran is saying, in their stories there are lessons. And about 1/3 of the Quran is qasas. About 1/3 of the Quran is stories of people before us. We need to learn the lessons from them. We'll come back inshallah with examples. Hopefully all of us will be aware of the style of the Quran so that we know when we're reading, we try to extract the message and implement it right away to become better people. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا توفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك ومتعنا اللهم بالنظر إلى وجهك الكريم. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا وجميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. صل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.